Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Ferguson City Council. The meeting is now called to order. Octavia, could you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Noah,
Here.
Councilwoman Griffin,
Here.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Here.
Councilwoman Robinette,
Here.
Mayor Jones,
Here.
Councilwoman Lipka,
Here.
and Councilwoman Nelson.
Here.
A quorum is present. I'd just like to share with everyone, we would like to have an 8:30 hard stop. So we have just 2 or 3 items, and hopefully we can move through the items and be finished the closed session too by 8:30. So that's the goal. The next item, new council members, questions and answers. To the new council members, do you have any questions about Robert Rules of Order or anything at this time?
Mayor, I just had questions regarding the boards and commission,
Okay, that will be the next item up.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Laquita?
I agree regarding the boards and commissions.
Okay.
So I can wait a minute.
Okay, since they don't have any Robert's Rules of Orders questions, we move to item number 3, discussion on boards and commissions. Octavia, could you please share some information about boards and commissions and how citizens are appointed and how council members are?
Oh, okay. So in terms of how council members are, typically we would go through the process immediately following the election. And the council members would then be sworn, not sworn, I'm sorry. But then you guys will go through the discussion of who would like to serve as council representative for which board. And then you would go through that appointment process. But in terms of citizens being appointed to the different boards and commissions, normally we would appoint to fill vacancies at any time during the year. To fill the unexpired term. But then, so the terms for boards and commissions run from July 1 to June 30. So around June, so right now would be when we would start the process to reappoint any of those that are interested in being reappointed to unexpired terms or to their expired terms. I'm sorry, if they have another term that they could fill. And we would also then take applications to fill those new terms that began July 1. So hopefully I made that clear. I feel like I stumbled a little bit, but yes. So throughout the year, typically you would fill unexpired terms to fill vacancies, and we would begin new appointments and reappointments beginning July 1. So you normally make those appointments in June. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it help, Phaedra, Councilwoman Nelson and Councilwoman Noor? Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. It's just that Octavia, and we can talk later about this. It could be me, but I know someone submitted an application, and I did read your email and your instructions. But again, it's a lot of information that I have to learn to navigate through. So I could be overlooking the application.
Okay.
So we can talk about that though. I can call you tomorrow, and maybe you can guide me through if you want. Okay.
Because I didn't necessarily touch on their part. I did send you guys some information today of how to access the updated list of boards and commissions, and also any applications that I have pending. They are separated by the particular board. If you guys do have issues accessing it, let me know. Or if you have someone that is interested in submitting an application that believes that they may have submitted an application and you don't see it, then yeah, let's talk about it because maybe they dropped it off at City Hall with the receptionist and it hadn't made it to me yet, or something, I don't know. But yeah, so we can talk about anyone that you feel has submitted an application and you don't see it.
Okay, because like I said, it could be me overlooking, so, okay, thank you.
This is Tony Barrow, Councilwoman Noah and Nelson. For you guys, if you are interested in finding out anything about the positions that we're holding, those that are already here, please feel free to reach out to me, to anybody that's holding a position that you're interested in joining or whatever. I think everybody would be favorable to answering any questions. Because I know once you get to reading, you're gonna wonder, well, what's that about really? So please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. The discussion is now open about boards and commissions. I'm asking people to look at the boards and commissions that you be on and be willing to move around. Nothing is in concrete. Everyone should have an opportunity to be able to be a part of a board and commission and move around and experience different boards and commissions. We have at least 22 boards and commissions, and that is a lot of work. We have several boards and commissions, like the Traffic Commission. It has 4 vacancies, and traffic is number one top item people are talking about at this time. So if anybody feel like they would like to be the council person on that and start working to get people on that board, that would be great. Councilwoman Lipka, you have your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. So 2 things I wanted to ask. Would there be a process of maybe, could we go through first and see, the commissions that all of us, like myself and Tony and Heather and you and Fran that we're on now, if there's anything that we want to keep, we can go through that and identify the ones that we would like to keep, because I know we've got quite a few open, and go from that perspective, maybe identify that first and then move forward.
Okay. I'll start with Garrett had Landmarks, Jones, Senior Citizen, West Florissant Business District and Parks, Lipka, FNIP and the Ferguson Special Business District, Robinette, Architectural Review, Board of Adjustment, Farmers Market, FYAB, Housing Board of Appeals, Technology, Jeske Park, Councilwoman Burrows, CRB, the Library, Economic Development, Sales Tax, Griffin, Building Board of Appeals, Plan Commission, and Councilman Fry. He had Personnel, Traffic, and Human Rights.
So I don't know who's going to start, so I will just jump in. I would like to maintain FSBD and FNIP, and I would like to add the Traffic Commission. And I would also like to add the Future Foundation Commission. But those, I'd like to maintain what I have. My preference would be to add those 2, and I'm just putting it out on the table to start the discussion.
Okay. Who would like to be next?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think it's
Councilwoman
I could.
Robinette.
So I don't see pension on here, which I would like to keep.
Okay, we got to put pension on.
Yeah.
I have it on mine. I don't know.
Pension is listed under Councilwoman Robinette.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's not on the sheet, so, okay. There are several boards that have just had vacancies for forever. And if somebody can recharge some of these, go for it. But I would like to keep the Youth Advisory Board, the Ferguson Youth Advisory Board, and pension. And let's see. Other than that, like, I'll keep whatever anybody doesn't want. But technology and farmers market also, because they're, near and dear to me.
Okay. Councilwoman Griffin?
I would like to stay on the planning commission. I was hearing, Byron, what days are the personnel boards on? Like what days are those meetings on?
So the personnel board only meets upon request.
Okay, well, I would be open to serving on that.
Okay.
Oh, I can go next. Madam,
Okay, Councilwoman Borough?
I was trying to keep this 4-year-old quiet. I didn't know if I was on or not. Okay. I would like to keep the CRB, the library, the EDST, which is economic development, and I'd like to add human rights.
Councilwoman Noor?
Okay, well, parks. I was gonna add human rights, but what else is available? You know,
If you
besides,
feel like you want to do human rights,
right,
I
but
think
it's,
Councilwoman Borough is going to
Right.
do objections.
So
I didn't hear you.
can I just add one comment? Normally, like historically, when new council members came in, whoever you're taking over for, or whoever you're replacing that seat, you would take on those boards and commissions. But I think we're open for discussion for if that could change, and we are open for discussion, but that's how it defaulted before.
okay.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I didn't hear your comment. I'm sorry.
I said that Councilwoman Noor had mentioned that she wanted human rights. And I said, I don't think that will be a problem for you if she want to keep if she wanted to be the council representative for human rights.
No, that won't be a problem at all, because if that's something that you would feel comfortable with coming out the gate, I would most definitely want you to do that.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilman.
I don't know if you know, there's a girl on there by the name of Tony, and she's excellent writer. She's excellent speaker. If you get with her, I think that you could really walk into there like you've been there all the time.
Okay. Councilwoman Nelson?
Okay, well, I did hear what Councilwoman Robinette said about taking ownership of what prior. Is that something that has always happened? As far as taking on what the previous council person?
When I got on, Dwayne dumped everything in my lap that he had. Dwayne James did. So it can go either way, right? So sometimes it's just what nobody wants to pick up, or what is left over. And again, I think we're all open to, what people want to do, what they feel passionate about, and kind of change it up in different ways.
Okay, so I was looking at economic development.
That's not something that I want to give up. Ella and I already had a conversation about that previously, about filling that role. And we had talked about, Ella, if you will recall, when you and I talked, when you were filling up some seats over in, I think it was human rights, I said, let me pick those people for, because I've already talked to people and you said okay to that. And so Councilwoman Nelson, economic development is something I've been working on for better half of this year. And so that's something I want to get in place right away, because I got a lot of things going to, as soon as we hit the ground next week, it's going to be happening.
Phaedra, you're on mute still. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Would
Thank
you
you.
be willing, Councilwoman Borough, to allow, I'm not allowed really, because, you know, Phaedra feel like she can do something or would like to be the representative. She should be able to have the opportunity.
I don't want to get into a big old thing about this, but you know, we already talked about this and we've had this conversation. That is something that I have been working on for a better part over the year. And I have talked to everybody that needs to be in place. I'm not interested in changing. And that's part of what we've been, that is, when Councilwoman Nelson asked the question, is it something that normally happens? And historically, when we come to this point, where the person that is already holding that seat is interested in doing that, that's what we have done historically. And I do want to do that. I don't want to change.
Neat new ideas.
Councilwoman Nelson, is anything else you like available? We have seniors, landmarks, personnel.
Mayor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Griffin did also note interest in personnel.
Okay. Yes, she did. Okay.
Hmm.
In the West Florissant Business District, they only meet as a call meeting, so they are not meeting at this time. The senior citizens, they meet at least 9 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know if you could set your schedule around them, or
What about, don't we
That's
also
gonna
have,
be hard for me to do with my full-time job,
Okay.
so.
yes,
um,
okay, Councilwoman Nelson, what are you saying?
That would be hard for me to do the seniors.
Okay, I can keep the seniors. That's no problem.
what about the Housing Board of Adjustment? Who is on that one? I don't see it on my paperwork. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Robinette. Never mind. I apologize. I had to scroll higher.
Mayor Jones,
Yes,
I wanted to kind of give the new councilwomen the opportunity to kind of select what was available, but I do have some interest in that West Florissant Business District. If, you know,
if you, that's fine. The West Florissant Business District is all yours. No problem, no problem with the West Florissant Business District. So I could keep the seniors. I don't have a day schedule, so I don't have any problems meeting with the seniors, not at all.
And you said personnel is already taken, correct?
Um,
I think
That's
we're,
Councilwoman Griffith, did you mention personnel?
Okay.
Ms. Phaedra, if you want personnel, you can have personnel.
Okay.
Councilwoman Borough, would you like to have a co-council person on economic development? Because I know when I first got on, Dwayne and I served as co and council person for the Human Rights Commission.
Not at this time, Mayor. Thank you for the request.
Okay. Phaedra, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Nelson.
Yes, Mayor.
Landmarks, they don't meet that often.
What about the architectural board? Who's on that one? Doesn't that need to be redesigned? Oh, that's you, Robinette.
And Alan Mueller's on that. Yeah. But there are vacancies. It's hard to find architects to join that board. So like if I could just stop right here and say, we have a lot of boards that haven't been a long time, and we've had these conversations over the last 2 years that if they're not boards that are required by state, requirements, or there is the opportunity to kind of consolidate some of them that have, similar structure and purview. The other thing is something that I've talked about throughout the last couple of years is if one person is on a board and they want to join another board, we have so few volunteers within the community that if they are not competing or, setting something up for the other board, we should look at how we allow people to be on more than one board. And that's how the farmers market and the technology board got set up, because you could be on any other board and you could still be part of them. So I'm just putting that out there. We don't have to do that tonight. That can be a working session at some point. But I think we need to look at our boards and commissions overall and the number of actual volunteers that we have that sign up to do this, and be a little more realistic.
Okay. So far, what are the selections so far, Octavia?
Those that are remaining, or what have I noted that people have been saying?
What have you noted?
Okay, so those that have been specifically touched on were Councilwoman Lipka, FSBD, FNIP, Ferguson Farmers Market, and Traffic.
No.
No.
No,
Future.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm
I'm sorry,
sorry.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, the Ferguson Future Foundation and Traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one for Councilwoman Robinette, I have Ferguson Youth Advisory Board, the Pension Technology Board, and Ferguson Farmers Market. Councilwoman Griffin, Plan Commission, West Florissant Business District. Councilwoman Burrow, CRB, Library, EDST, Economic Development Sales Tax. Councilwoman Noah, Parks and Human Rights. Councilwoman Nelson, Personnel. And Mayor Jones, Senior.
So what's still open? Because on my paperwork, which is old paperwork, it shows the architectural board has Robinette, but you didn't list that tonight. So,
So Linda, I said that I would take anything that I currently have, because a lot of these don't meet anyway, and we can figure out what to do with them. The ones that I want to stay on, I listed.
oh, okay, but I missed. Okay.
So several of the ones that are under my name don't meet even once a year.
But
Okay,
that could always change. I mean, if somebody gets in charge of it, like a council member, and we see that it's something that needs to be addressed with the 2040 plan or other things that are going forward, then that council member can revitalize that. I mean, you can go in there and say, yeah, maybe they only meet once a year or whatever, but maybe it's something that, if we're going with economic development, then architecture board might want to start meeting. I'm just saying you have room for growth. If a council member wanted to take that on and work with the rest of the council to, if we create as a council our objectives as a unit of working women, and a board is sitting there in limbo right now, or just kind of in a frozen position, we as the women on the council can revitalize that and get it moving again to move toward our objectives. So I guess what I'm trying to say to everybody on the council, just because something doesn't meet that often, if you feel it's something that you want to kickstart, you can always do that.
Mhm.
Like that initiative you were talking about, Ella, when you got on council.
Okay, and so for the ones that have not, that are still up, even though I know Councilwoman Robinette, you said you would keep it if no one else wanted it, but I'll just note the ones that we have not mentioned. And that's the Architectural Review Board, Board of Adjustment, Building Board of Appeals, Housing Board of Appeals, Landmarks Commission, and Jeske Park.
Phaedra, you want another park? You already got Halpern.
No, no.
And Jeske Park is the sculpture park.
Yeah, I know what it is.
but yeah, so that's the significance there.
I'll take Jeske. I'll take 3. So,
You know, after that meeting that we all sat in last night on this Parks and Planning steering, that seems pretty interesting.
Miss Octavia,
Yes, I'm listening.
Fran, you mentioned you had a housing commission,
Housing Board of Appeals.
housing board of appeals, okay. And that's,
What is all of that? What does that involve exactly? Do we know?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to.
Did you get, excuse me, Housing Board of Appeal, did you get the meaning to it?
I think she's looking it up now.
Okay.
Oh, you're muted, Octavia. You're muted, Octavia. You're still muted.
Okay, my screen was blocked. Okay, sorry about that. So it says to hear and uphold or reverse wholly or in part the appeals of property owners where it is alleged that there is an error in the code official's order, requirement, decision, or determination in enforcing the city's exterior appearance code. And so, I mean, there's quite a bit there, but that kind of surrounds, if that helps at all, or if I need
Okay, Miss.
one, I can.
That's okay, Miss Octavia. That's fine. I'll do that one.
Okay.
Hey, Phaedra, another thing just to give you a heads up on, we are currently sitting in the 90-day window of approval on the updated building codes. So that's going to directly affect your board there, because the building codes have just gone to 2018 when we were originally doing, I think we were doing 2012. What was it, John? Do you remember what the building code was that we were working? Was it 2006?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
So we just went to 2018, which is what all of our surrounding neighborhood communities are using. So you're going to see more activity in that group, most likely, because there's going to be a whole new definition of building codes, inspections, interior, exterior, residential, and commercial.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Councilwoman Duncan.
I can get with you on that if you'd like, on the code update.
Okay, that'd be great, Hampton. I appreciate that.
Okay.
when does Jeske meet?
Not much at all. Not
But-
much at all.
Naquita, you wanted when you look at your list of people who are on that board, Bryce Robinson is awesome. That's who you want to have a conversation with. He is the curator of those sculptures, and he grew up in Ferguson. He grew up around the corner from us. I've watched him grow up. He was my daughter. My daughter would be his age right now, but yeah, he is definitely who you want to talk to. He's the one that gets the artwork and everything else. He's awesome. You'll love it.
Okay, great. If
In
it's in a
addition
park,
to that, one of the members from the Parks Board is on Jeske Park, so you have to find someone from the Parks Board, Councilwoman Noor, to put on Jeske Parks Commission, okay? It's listed once you go through it, okay? So, Octavia, do we have a final list?
Well, the only thing I changed about that list was I added Jeske Park to Councilwoman Noah. Now, if going with, as Councilwoman Robinette stated, I can assign those that were not mentioned back to the people that had them already. And if that individual is no longer here, then it would go to whoever is now taking that place.
So, which would be landmarks.
Mm-hmm. So,
Okay.
so landmarks was one of them. Let me go back. So it was the Architecture Review Board, Board of Adjustment. We've assigned Housing Board of Appeals. Then it would be, and we've also assigned Jeske Parks. So then it would be Building Board of Appeals.
Now,
So-
on my paperwork, that shows Fran on there. It shows Griffin.
Well, I mean, and that's what I was saying. What I was saying was,
Oh,
for those that we have not mentioned, if we're going with, as Councilwoman Robinette spoke, we're going to assign them to who already has them. And if it was one that a council member is not here anymore, then it's going to go to whoever is taking that individual's place. So for instance, we have not spoken on landmarks, and that was Councilman Garrett. So then,
So I would like to take landmarks.
okay.
Since I'm giving up a couple others. Thank you.
so let me
Unless-
ask, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Lipka?
So I was just gonna ask, so, forgive me, Phaedra, what was the one that we were just talking about with the what's the-
Housing Board of Appeals.
Okay, so Octavia, would Building Board of Appeals complement Housing Board of Appeals? I mean, if a council member is getting up to speed on the building codes, would those two complement each other? I'm just curious.
So let me read a snippet from Building Board of Appeals in hopes to answer the question. And it says, and perhaps it says to hear and uphold or reverse wholly or in part the appeal of an owner or any other person who claims that the true tenet of the code or the rules legally adopted have been incorrectly interpreted. That the provisions of the code do not apply, or that the equally good or better form of construction can be used. So perhaps they do go hand in hand. I don't know if they complement each other, but perhaps they go hand in hand. But it is one that may be impacted by the update to the code. And it is one that currently has not met in a number of years.
Right. So, and that's my thing. Like, I know Miss Miss Nelson and Miss Noah are new to the council, but I actually want to give them an opportunity to sit on a board that's actually active, because the reward of being able to sit and learn about the different skills, the type of business that city government does, that's very good knowledge to be able to have. And so, I want to leave, if Ms. Nelson feels comfortable with picking up the Building Board of Appeals, that just know, Ms. Nelson, that is an inactive board. We haven't had much action on that. So you've got two boards right now that really don't get much action at all. And that may work with your schedule. But having one at least, so that you can have some knowledge of like what the functions are. I would hope that we as a council can kind of give some space to let up one of our active boards, so that we can give the other council opportunities to really serve. If it goes along with the schedule and if everybody's willing to work with each other.
Fran, that's actually a really good point. And like I'm looking through, so some of these things are near and dear to us because we, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the work done prior to even being on council. This pains me to say it, I might cry. But if somebody would like to take over the Ferguson Youth Advisory Board council representation, I would be willing to give that up to somebody who wants to be in an active board and commission.
Oh, Heather. What days do they meet? I'm not suggesting that I want to do it. I want to leave that space open for new councilwomen, but just for their purposes, what days do they meet?
It's first Monday of every month that the youth board meets. And they meet with the executive director, and our Caitlin has been the staff member that meets with them every month. And I believe it's 5:30 p.m. the first Monday of every month. So it's not during the workday. Well, unless you're traveling or whatever. But getting to know the kids is very inspirational and the future of Ferguson. But I've been part of it for 10 years now in various capacities on the adult board and the youth advisory board. But I would like other people to be a part of it so they can help move it forward. And I won't cry. I'm gonna
That's huge, Heather. I know how close that is to your heart.
Knew this would happen when we start working together. I knew it. Oh, this is wonderful. Ladies?
Yeah, we don't have a response from our two new ladies.
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna stay with what I initially said, and that's personnel and building and housing. That's what I'm gonna stay with.
Okay, great. Okay,
well, I'm comfortable with the 3 that I have, but I mean, I'm willing to,
Well, I think you've got a busy one. You've got parks.
Yeah, Parks is busy.
Yeah, you're
Arts
gonna,
and human rights, yeah, those are.
yeah,
busy.
you're busy, young lady.
So, right, that's what I'm saying. The 3 that I have, I'm okay with.
Mhm.
Let me just say, I appreciate Heather for at least extending that offer, because I would, it is important for us to start showing, true meaning of what working together looks like. I think that's important. So thank you for offering it. I really think that's huge.
Now, I jumped in there and asked for traffic, but if there's either one of you ladies want traffic, that's by all means, I'm okay with that. Is that something of interest to either one of you?
Go ahead, Linda. I'm Councilwoman. It's all yours.
All right.
Okay, well, I'm with the senior citizens at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Hey,
I
hey, guess-
love my seniors at 9 o'clock in the morning.
well, if I could get my mom in on her walker by then, I'd have her in those meetings, but it takes me an hour just to get her from the bed to the door.
They have some lively meetings, so I'm glad to be back with the seniors. So we basically have everything together. Is that not correct, Clerk Pittman?
Well, I mean, yes and no. So yes, we did talk about some specifically, and again, no, because there are some that we didn't mention. And like I said, I'll just assign those to who already has them.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
before we move on though, Mary, can I just point out one other thing?
Yes, ma'am.
About the commissions, and I don't know, maybe you were going to say something, but I just want to highlight that before we move on from this, that we do, again, make the appointments to fill boards and commissions on the annual basis. We do that in June, but we can fill vacancies at any time. And we have a number of boards that are desperately in need of being filled because they are unable to meet. The Parks Board is one of them. And, you know, when you go through your list, just kind of take a look at it because I've pointed out quite a few vacancies on the back end of your list. And I'm going to update that also for the public and make sure that's available on our website so that they can take a look at it. But I did just want to kind of remind you guys that we do have a number of vacancies that we need to have filled because, and I keep pointing out the parks because we lost a couple of more members just this month as they were elected to the council. And so now they don't have a quorum at all.
So-
Clerk, I tell you this, Tony Burrow. So if there is a need for someone on the Parks Board, I wouldn't mind being put there to help them get a quorum.
No, not council representative. I mean, in terms of.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so while you're out talking with your constituents, if we could just remind them that we do have, just please take a look at the list, just all throughout the list. And I know somebody else did mention it earlier, but we do have a number of vacancies that need to be filled so that we can continue to meet, those that do meet regularly.
All right, Councilwoman Lipka?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, Octavia, would you do us a favor and email us a blank application form? Just so I can download it on my end and print it off and have them available. But if you will just point out to me where they are, because I ask you a lot of questions that you say it's already out there, Linda, and I just need to be pointed in the right direction. So if it's out there, point me in the right direction. And if it isn't, would you mind sending me a blank copy so I can have those handy?
Yeah, I can send it to you so that way you can have it and you can easily email it, and I'll send it out to everyone. And I'll do it while we're meeting here today. But also so that you are aware, it is also accessible via the link that I sent you today.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So you can get to it from that link that I sent you today.
Okay.
Okay, thank
I have a
you.
question before we move forward. Sorry, Mayor. Just so I'm clear, with the jet ski board, because it does say here park board member under number 5. So we need to have one of our park board members also be on jet ski board. Is that what you were saying, Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
okay. Clerk Pittman, please type all this up and send it out to us tomorrow so we know how we navigating. All the ones who have boards and commission, assign them to the people, and then we could take a look at the list and make certain that everything is what we said.
Okay.
Okay?
And-
All right.
And you may have already done this, so I apologize. I'm just going to clarify, not only for myself, but for everybody who's listening. The list you sent out today is current on the vacancies in each board and commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that way, just so all of us ladies know, when we're looking at that list and we're recruiting for our own, we can also be recruiting to assist other boards and commissions and one another.
Correct. Correct. Well, thank you for the spirit of cooperation and working together. This history-making council. At this time, we would like to move to the next item on the agenda. It's the Ferguson Fire Department. Chief Hampton, you have the floor.
Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure being here. I am going to introduce my Assistant Chief, Jeremy Corcoran. He's here to the right of us. Well, once he starts talking, you'll see him pop up. He will also be sharing the screen with everybody. So if we have any technical difficulties or anything like that, just holler and we'll help you out. Jeremy, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Chief. My name is Jeremy Corcoran. I'm Assistant Chief with the Ferguson Fire Department. For those of you that might be new, I've worked there since 2002. And what brings me here today is basically to have a conversation with you guys to bring you up to speed with some fact finding that we've been tasked by the city to look into. And that's essentially about consolidating our fire departments with other area agencies, and what that would mean for the city, what it would cost, what the benefits would be to the community and to the city itself as far as budget constraints and budget relief. Couple things before I share the screen and we get going on the presentation. We're gonna put out a lot of information tonight. It's not gonna answer all the questions. What we're looking to do right now is we're looking to start the conversation. This isn't anything that requires a decision tonight. This isn't anything that requires a vote. The earliest something like this could happen is probably going to be April or August of 2022. So I don't want anybody to think this is something we're trying to rush to a conclusion on. I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't hear you.
You were kind of breaking up
Okay.
a little bit, but it's
Presentation,
clear.
I know you'll have questions as I go on. Okay. So as we move through it, like I said, you're going to have questions, but it's a long presentation. And I think we'll answer a lot of the questions we move through. So if you could just hold questions to the end, because I don't know if I'll be able to see when you have questions once I'm sharing my screen, but I'll be happy to answer as many questions as we have at the end. I'm going to attempt to share this screen now and we'll get started. All right. Consolidation. Categories. Why are we attempting consolidation? How does that benefit
A really
the
bad connection.
community? Are you guys having trouble hearing me?
I'm having trouble.
Yes, your connection is not clear.
Yes.
Jeremy, call in with your phone.
Has anyone been able to see the screen share yet, or is it just my end that's still spinning?
I can see the screen share.
Ms.
The
Lipka,
screen is up, so your end is still spending. Councilwoman Lepka?
Oh, there it is. I just got it. Thank you.
Is that better, guys? I tried to reconnect.
Yes.
Okay, so we can see the screen now.
Yeah,
Much better.
And do I sound okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Much
I apologize for that connection. I'm not sure what happened. If it happens again, I'll switch to a different Wi-Fi. So I don't know how much of the first part you heard. I'll start over. Basically what I was saying at the beginning, if this is redundant, if you already heard this, I apologize. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk to you tonight about fire department consolidation and what all that would entail. The couple of points I wanted you guys to keep in mind as we move through this presentation was that this isn't anything that's happening soon. I'll outline in this presentation why it's a lengthy process. The earliest, if we could even attempt something like this, would be April of August of next year. So this isn't anything that requires decision tonight. This isn't anything that's going to require any action anytime soon. It's just we are showing you our findings to start the conversation. It's going to be a lot of information. There's going to be a lot of questions, but especially with it being Zoom, if you could just hold your questions to the end, I think we'll answer a lot of them throughout the presentation, and then I will certainly take as many questions as you have at the end.
I have a question prior
yeah.
to
Sure.
just an overview of this. Is this a broad stroke of all of the possible fire department consolidations throughout the districts, or is this what someone, maybe John Hampton or someone, is recommending? I want to be clear.
Sure thing, Councilwoman. So as I go through the presentation, we looked at basically, I'll show you where we looked at the different avenues and then and what our decision points were. So this is a proposal. Yes, we have looked at, I'm going to address the different avenues we could have gone, and I'm going to address why we chose the current one we're proposing. But it is this, so we are proposing a particular path in this presentation. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll be looking forward to looking at the whole thing because I think it's important when we push it to the community that we're transparent about all of those options and what those dynamics were, how they will impact the city if we choose to move forward versus just recommendations. So thank you for showing a full, clear, broad picture of what can be done. Thank you.
Jeremy, you still there?
Does that answer your question?
No, you were completely gone.
Oh, wow, great. What I said was absolutely. I think I addressed your concerns throughout this presentation. If I understand what you're asking, but if I don't, we can certainly do a better job of that when we're done if I don't address what your concerns were, Councilwoman.
Okay, nope, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started. Basically, the overview. We're going to talk about why we are attempting to consolidate. We're going to talk about how that's going to benefit the community, and we're going to talk about what that process entails. So first of all, why are we attempting consolidation? First and foremost, the reason why this is happening, I think it's important to note that this wasn't a fire department initiative. This is something we were asked to pursue by the then city manager. He asked us to look into this, and the reasons we'll go into is basically for budget relief. One of the reasons he asked us, the main reason he asked us to look into is municipal firefighting is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain, not just in this region, but nationwide. And we'll talk about some of that. And additionally, the current regional structure of fire protection is inefficient, and we're going to talk about that as well. So I said one of the main things is sustainability challenges. Those challenges are budget constraints, the difficulty to recruit and retain as a municipal fire department, and how difficult it is to improve services to the citizens. So budget constraints, let's talk about those.
Excuse me, Jeremy, your
Yes.
PowerPoint is not showing.
Okay, let's see what's going on my end. It shows I'm sharing my screen. Let me try again. It showed it was sharing over here. I apologize. Is it showing now?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I apologize, guys. On mine, everything looked like it was okay. So like I said, we were asked to pursue this by our city manager. I'll just recap real quick. And the reason we're asked is because municipal firefighting is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain, and the current regional structure is inefficient. So budget constraints, difficulty to recruit, retain, and difficulty to improve services because it requires things like grants and creative funding because the resources just aren't there. So we'll take those one at a time. Budget constraints. So if you look at our budget, the Ferguson Fire Department budget increases an average of 4% a year. That's kind of an industry standard, actually. And if you look at it, I went back and looked at our budget since 2018. It has increased $354,000, which is about a 12% increase, and that held true to the 4% a year. I wanted to see if that was a recent trend, so I went back a little bit further. I went from 13 to 15, and that 293 also bared out to be a 4% increase on average. It's important to note that those increases don't have anything to do with capital, meaning any building infrastructure improvements, purchasing apparatus, any purchasing of gear or equipment. That's all in addition to that 4% increase, which is basically operating cost. So I wanted to see, okay, where is that salary? Well, we did add 5 positions in that span. So that's 5 new salaries. However, it's a SAFER grant we got from FEMA that's covering 75% of 4 of those positions. And also during that time, 4 of our top end salaries were replaced with starting salaries due to retirements. And so the cost is spread out over, it's not a salary increase, it's operational costs. So where does that come from? A lot of ways. So the first and foremost is things get more expensive. Cost of fuel goes up, cost of equipment goes up, cost of goods and services go up. Additionally, though, we expand our services at a regular rate. Years ago, there was no hazmat, there was no rescue, there was no EMS. We do all of those now. And the scope within we do all those things continue to expand rapidly. And every time we increase our scope, it requires new training, it requires new equipment. In addition to all of those costs, sometimes you have things like COVID that completely change the way we're doing business, and that comes with a cost. In addition, the federal guidelines continue to get tougher to meet. They continue to increase the staffing levels they require to meet the minimum safety standards on the fire scene, while they reduce lifespans of equipment, saying that a helmet can't last as long or turnout gear can't stay in service as long, which requires us to replace them sooner. In short, the expense of running a fire department continues to go up exponentially. So you marry that against Ferguson's revenue. Obviously, the dip in 14, it was an anomaly, but even after the recovery, you see the last 4 years, it's not a trend that is conducive to a fire department that continues to increase exponentially in their budget. So that's why we were approached to figure out a way that we could continue to provide a high level of fire service to our citizens while also giving much needed budget relief to the city. Throughout this time, the cities have aggressively sought outside funding via grants and donations. The city and the city council have continually gone to bat for us, and the citizens have answered the bell. They've instituted fire sales tax, they've instituted a utility tax, public safety property tax. There's been infusion from Prop P. Basically, the citizens and our government has been there for us throughout every step of the way. But every time they make a decision come budget season to fund us, they do that at the expense of every other department and every other service that the city so desperately needs. To keep us at the level we need to be at, police don't get what they need, parks don't get what they need, streets don't get what they need. And quite frankly, the fire department, despite best efforts, is still coming up somewhat short. So why are we coming up short? We provide a high level of service, to be sure, but there are 43 agencies in St. Louis County that provide fire protection. You can see the map there, how they're divided up. That's an anomaly in the nation. You normally do not see that number of small fire departments in a population density this size. Los Angeles County, for example, it's one fire department for the entire county. So St. Louis is kind of unique in that sense. It creates a very competitive environment, obviously, for hiring. So municipalities like FFD, and I meant to have Berkeley on there, that's Ferguson, Hazelwood, Berkeley, they're in the bottom 10%. We're the municipal fire departments. We're not districts of salaries. That leaves left roughly 38 higher paying opportunities just within the county for firefighters to go to. Obviously, it's difficult to recruit and difficult to retain in that environment. We are a BLS department. What that means is we provide basic life support services. We're one of the few. When Chief Hampton came on, one of his first goals was to transition to an advanced life support department. And we're doing that. We bought the monitors. We've been hiring paramedics. And once we're an ALS department full of paramedics, they're able to go to all those other places that also require paramedics. Basically, we become similar to I used Hazelwood as an example because they have a similar pay structure to ours right now. And if you look at the left there, you're going to see all the people that have left Hazelwood to go to a fire district. And if you look at the last 14 months, they've lost 9 people to go to higher paid fire departments in the area. It creates a revolving door situation. And why is that an issue? When you don't have retention, it's just a fact of the matter, unfortunately, that if you take a 5, 6, 7-year firefighter and replace them with a brand new firefighter at the academy, you're going to reduce the overall competence of the department if you're doing that on a regular basis. It also reduces morale. No matter what team you're on, if people are leaving it at a regular basis, you're not going to feel real good about that team. It makes an inability to recruit. Obviously, everyone knows the departments that have revolving doors, the people that are training grounds, and they know going in if this is a destination department or not. There's also a huge increase in cost. You have to equip those new firefighters. You have to train those new firefighters. You have to pay overtime while they go to the specific classes. Just to equip a new firefighter in turnout gear and helmet alone is over $5,000. They estimate the cost after the training and the time spent, the man hours in bringing that firefighter up to competent levels. You basically invest about $10,000 into a new firefighter. As they go out the door after a couple of years, you've essentially paid to train that firefighter and handed it off to another employer ready to go, and you've buried the cost for that. So this big long thing is basically a study that was done in Mississippi. They looked at about 6,000 EMS runs, and no surprise, what they found was experienced paramedics and EMTs had a better outcome than inexperienced. Nothing earth-shattering there. The one on the right was a study that was done in England, then they looked specifically at cardiac cases. And basically what they found is paramedics with greater than 4 years of experience had a much better outcome in cardiac cases than paramedics that had less than 4 years. Again, more experience being better at your job isn't earth shattering, but it just reinforces that in the life and death business, experience doesn't mean that, you know, hey, you do a better job of filing your reports. It means more people live. This is a study that came out of Iowa State, and they looked at inexperienced firefighters and experienced firefighters, and they did a cognitive decision-making test under stress. What they expected to find was that the experienced firefighters would have a lower level of stress and faster decision-making. What they actually found is the inexperienced firefighter and the experienced firefighter had the same stress levels when they were put under duress. However, the experienced firefighter took longer to make decisions, but those that had a better positive outcome than the inexperienced firefighter that would rush to it. Basically, what they found was an experienced firefighter is going to analyze the data. He's not going to get rushed because of the stress, and he's going to make decisions that have a more positive outcome. Again, experience matters. And if we're not able to retain, we're not having that experience at the citizen's disposal when it comes to emergencies. So how does forming and consolidating into a district solve those problems? So basically, I wanted to talk about first, what is a fire protection district? It's a political subdivision. It's funded through property tax, and it's governed directly by a board of directors. Essentially, just like the city council funds the Ferguson Fire Department, it is its own political subdivision with its own elected officials who then collect a property tax to fund their fire district, and it's governed by those board of directors, which are citizens within the district that are voted on by the people. This is the list of the municipalities in St. Louis County that are currently protected by fire protection districts. It's a big list. Obviously, everything from small cities like Veneta Terrace to big cities like Baldwin and Fenton and Florissant and Town and Country, Creve Coeur, and everything in between. This is the list of the cities that still have municipal fire departments in St. Louis County. I can tell you for a fact that every city on this list has at least entered into or had discussions about ways to consolidate, collaborate, or divest themselves of their fire department. Right now in the central corridor, you have Clayton, Richmond Heights, Maplewood, Brentwood, Ladue, Rock Hill. They're engaged for, I believe it's the 5th time in an attempt to consolidate their fire departments. So this isn't a North County issue. It is a regional issue, and in fact, it's a national issue. Municipalities are having a more and more difficult time coming up with the resources to continue to fund their fire departments at the levels they need to be funded at. So to answer Councilwoman Griffith's question, when we first got into this, we basically saw that there was three routes we could take. The first one we wanted to look at is why not a standalone? And by standalone, if we were going to do this, why not take the Ferguson Fire Department and make it into the Ferguson Fire District? So basically, like I said before, there's already 43 small agencies in St. Louis County. Agencies of our size, we don't even have the ability to mitigate hazards on our own. We do a good job of fighting fire, but it requires, if there's a house fire in Ferguson, it requires anywhere from 6 to 7 apparatus to have the proper manpower to address that house fire, which means that it's going to be our fire department and upwards of probably no less than 4 other fire departments, sometimes 6 other fire departments on the scene. And that's true countywide. That's not Ferguson specific. And the reason is because everyone is small. That also leads to a redundancy of equipment. And what I mean by that is, let's say Berkeley or Metro North or Northeast buys a shiny new piece of rescue equipment. In essence, we have access to that through mutual aid. But we can't depend on that truck being available with that piece of rescue equipment when our citizen needs it. They might be on another call, they might be otherwise occupied. So we have to purchase that same shiny, expensive piece of rescue equipment to make sure the citizens that we serve are also going to have access to that 24/7 when they need it. So there's a lot of redundancy there in our purchasing. A lack of continuity. Anytime you have 43 small agencies, even though we do our best to try to have standard operating guidelines, you're going to have 43 ways of doing things. There's no economy of scale in a small agency. And what I mean by that is in purchasing, obviously the city of St. Louis is going to get a lot cheaper rate buying 31 fire trucks than the city of Ferguson is going to get buying 1. There's also no economy of scale as far as weathering financial downturns. You're already operating at a bare minimum. So if there's a financial downturn that you can't weather, your options are reduce manpower, reduce services, maybe close a firehouse. There's no way to move pieces around to weather that storm. You're also, when you stay small, you have an inability to specialize. you know, you can't have a rescue truck, or you can't have an aerial that specializes in rescue and ventilation. Everyone has to be able to do everything at all times. As I said before, you're susceptible to shortfalls. So what does all that do? That all relates in the smaller you are, the higher the tax rate you have to counteract all those things. So we didn't feel like that solves the problem. It just contributes to the inefficiencies in St. Louis County firefighting we already have. A higher tax rate would be fiscally irresponsible, we felt, to ask the citizens to try to carry that burden. And we frankly just didn't think it was the best way to go about it. So we looked at, okay, so if standalone wasn't the best way to go about it, what about merging with an existing fire protection district? We're surrounded by several existing reputable fire districts. We talked to other fire districts, and then we also talked to some of the people. And one of the biggest things that stuck out to us is if we join an existing fire districts, it means our communities are not represented. What I mean by that is there is already a board that's already been elected, and there's already a leadership core. And so if the Ferguson Fire Department were to join an existing fire district, there'd be no Ferguson representation on that board. Now, of course, as openings came up down the road, somebody from Ferguson would be allowed to run for it. But creating this and asking the citizens to bear the burden of an increase in tax, but not having any say-so over how that tax money is spent, we got some negative feedback over that, understandably. Also, when you join an existing fire district, this is just talking to other fire departments that have gone through this. In their process, doesn't mean this would be for everyone. Senior firefighters were told they weren't being included. The existing districts said, hey, we have enough senior firefighters. We're not interested in your top end salaries. Those people will need to be, you know, into early retirement. That wasn't something that was appealing to us, basically. Existing resources can be moved as the other districts sees fit. And what I mean by that, if we were to join Florissant Fire Protection District, their board and their leadership core could say, hey, that's a nice ladder truck. We think would be better over here, and it would serve this area better because there's bigger need. And they can move resources in and out of our area for our citizens without much say so on our part. That wasn't appealing to us. A lot of times, rank and seniority are forfeit. There's been a couple instances we know of for a fact when people were trying to have merger conversations where they told them, hey, you can come. But if you're a 15-year captain, you're now a first-year private. All their rank, all their seniority of the people coming over were forfeit. Again, not super appealing. And again, like I said before, they already have a leadership core, which is going to make decisions on how they feel like the citizens in our community should be served. And so if we looked at that, basically what we were left with is, well, if none of those two options seemed very appealing to us, what if we created something new? What if we did something that we could build from the ground up with citizen oversight from day one to kind of be a standard bearer on how we think firefighting should be done in North County? And so what we're going to talk about now is what that would have looked like. So what would the benefits to the community be? It's going to provide economic relief from the burden brought on by the fire department so that each of the cities can better serve their citizens, increase their infrastructure, increase staff, increase services, pay for all those things that they can't currently pay for now because of us, while simultaneously improving their emergency services. So what would consolidation require? Well, one of the things we came to a conclusion, the city manager came to us and said, hey, if we're going to do this, the only way it would make sense to do this is if the city was willing to put skin in the game, to use his term. And he said that it would require a reducing the existing property tax the city currently charged by 50 cents. And then we would consolidate into a district. That 50 cents reduction by the city would be a 42% rollback of existing property tax. And it goes a long way towards refunding all the previously approved public safety taxes that the citizens have answered the bell for. In addition, if the fire department would go away, the fire sales tax would be repealed, which would also offset some of the additional costs to be incurred. I think this is incredibly important to show the commitment, the city's commitment to sharing this burden, and to show the citizens that this is something that is being done, not in addition to what they've already done, but a new path. So if we're rolling back 42% of our property taxes, is it still worth doing? The answer to that is yes. And the reason why the answer to that is yes is we looked at the numbers. And so if Ferguson rolled back their property tax by 50 cents, the property revenue that would be lost is just over $1 million. The loss of the fire sales tax would be just over $650,000. So Ferguson would lose $1.7 million in revenue, essentially. But then they would also lose the expense of us, which is roughly $3.3 million. Our budget is a little over 2.7, 2.8, but that is the fire department budget. We also had to go to our finance director and to our public works, find out what do they spend on us in fuel? What do they spend on us in repair to our apparatus? What do they spend to keep our buildings up, to replace our HVAC equipment when it goes down? What do they spend on us for payroll? What do they spend on us for legal and for HR? And basically what they found, and it's all in, we cost the city about $3.3 million was the number. So if you take out the revenues lost and balance that against what you save by not paying for your fire department, on day one, the city's savings would have $1.6 million of budget relief. That's with the 50 cents rollback on the property tax. That's $1.6 million, I say day one, because as I already illustrated, our costs continue to go up dramatically every year. And so each year those costs are going to compound. Those costs are don't even, again, like I said, don't even take into account our capital budget, which I'll let Chief Hampton speak to because it changes year to year, but it's substantial, you know, in the hundreds of thousands in addition to these savings. So we looked at it and we said, okay, there's 3 municipal fire departments. They all have similar sizes. They all have similar populations. They all have similar pay plans and benefits packages. It would make sense to consolidate. So we looked at that. We did some feasibility studies. We approached the entities of Ferguson, Berkeley, Kinloch, Hazelwood to see what about a massive consolidation and what would it look like. Throughout the course of those conversations, basically the Berkeley Fire Department told us they liked the plan. The timing wasn't working for them. They had just gone for an ambulance tax. They just asked the citizens for that. They didn't think it was a good time to go back to the polls to try to do something dramatic. And so they said that while they are not out on the concept, for right now, they have to say that it's a pass, but they like to continue conversations. We also approached Kinloch Fire Protection District. I had meetings with both the membership and with Chief Stewart, multiple meetings. Again, it's the same thing that's going on. It's not a door that's closed. At the time, the things that they were interested in, we weren't able to provide. And what I mean by that is one of the things were that they would want a fully staffed, paid firehouse in Kinloch. And what I was telling them is the money isn't there to subsidize that right off the bat. So unless we increase the tax rate to the other citizens to subsidize that, we would have to continue as an auxiliary, if you will. In other words, like Afton Fire Protection has a house 3 that is volunteer, like Kinloch is now, and that would be an auxiliary. But understandably, I get their mindset. The membership I talked to and Chief Stewart were like, well, if it's going to be auxiliary and it's going to be volunteer like we are now, then really we'd rather just stay on our own for right now, but we're still open to discussion. So basically at that point, Hazelwood was the only one of the people we talked to that said, yes, we're very interested. So to answer your earlier question, Councilwoman, that's why this proposal landed to this. So since we had one person that said the consolidation that they were interested today, we did a feasibility study on that consolidation, and that's what I'm proposing today. That doesn't mean we are still very open to expanding that to include Berkeley and others. But right now I have to work with the people that told me they are interested. So quick feasibility on that merger. You can see Hazelwood's in a similar position as Ferguson. Again, like I said, it's a regional problem, not a Ferguson problem. Their fire department costs are going up at the same rate as ours, and their revenues are dropping similar to ours. You can see their savings are pretty much the same. Their property revenue loss would be much bigger. And the reason is because while the city of Hazelwood Fire Department serves an area about the same size as ours, the property rollback tax would go across the entire city. And a large portion of the city of Hazelwood is covered by Robertson Fire Protection District and Florissant Valley Fire Protection District. So while that wouldn't impact the people that are being taxed for the new fire district, it would impact on the rollback. So they lose 2.7, they lose their 710 in fire sales tax. However, their fire department cost is 5.3. So if you look at the projected savings, we save 1.6, they save just over 1.5. So it's equitable in that sense. So basically those are the borders that it would encompass. Similar size, like I said, similar populations, similar department sizes already. So we did a feasibility budget to see what it would cost. And I say a feasibility budget because the actual budget would be determined by the elected officials and the chief officers and their staffs. So this was more of a feasibility budget where we did our due diligence to figure out what would it cost to run such a district. Obviously, we got with the fire chiefs of those two things to talk about their costs. We also got with both city managers. We got with finance directors to figure out what those costs would be. We also had to have lots of conversations with area fire districts, figure out what do they pay for all of the infrastructure things that we currently get from the city of Ferguson. Things like payroll, HR, legal, IT, copiers, all those types of things. And basically, we came up with the cost, and then we figured out, okay, what would it take to generate enough cost to do that? And the proposed tax rate in order to make that feasible was 235. So what does that mean? 235 with a 50-cent rollback by the city would mean we would be asking for a $1.85 tax increase to the citizens. I put up here some of the area fire districts around North County, so you can kind of see how that relates. As you can see, $1.85 is incredibly competitive. It's definitely on the cheap end of the scale. Florissant and Blackjack would be the only two that are less, and that's because they are taxing a much higher assessed value than this would be. So their $1.62 is actually bringing in, and $1.61 a lot more than this $1.85 would be. So $1.85, we felt like, okay, well, that's a fiscally responsible compared to the other fire districts we'd be dealing with, and we generate enough money. So this thing is financially feasible. So what would that mean? This is just wanted to be transparent. It's not chump change. If you had $100,000 house, your mortgage could go up $29 a month. Nobody thinks that's a small amount of money. But I want to reiterate, this isn't something we're doing just because we think it would be nicer. This is something we're doing because the city's budget isn't going to make the needs to be able to provide all the services. For like 3 or 4 budget cycles in a row, we've been approached about this because each time there's deficit spending going on. And right now, as they continue to fund us, police aren't getting the funding they needed, parks aren't getting the funding they need, streets aren't getting fixed because they have to pay for us. This isn't it would be nicer situation. It is a situation that has to occur if the citizens want to continue to, not continue, but if they want to have services and not have them reduced. What would it look like? Well, we feel like it's important to keep people home in essence. You see, there'd be 2 fire chiefs, and they would they'd work together. They'd be on equal footing, equal pay, and they would basically be sector chiefs. So for example, Chief John Hampton would be the sector chief in Ferguson. He knows the area of operations. He knows the people. You guys put him in place for a reason, because you want him to be the guy who's in charge of your public safety. And the same thing in Hazelwood. So they basically have their sectors that they're in charge of. And in the original one, this was a 3-way thing. We had the Berkeley chief that was in charge of his sector as well. And so they would have their sectors. The same men and women that currently respond out of those firehouses to mitigate emergencies in the community would be the exact same men and women coming out of the exact same firehouses, wearing the exact same turnout gear. Nobody would lose a position. Nobody would lose rank. There would be a spot for everybody. If we were to create this and we move forward with it, how does that happen? So basically, there is a state law, Missouri State Statute Chapter 321 in place that gives you step-by-step instructions on what's required by law to create such an entity. Unlike anything else that you guys have put on the ballot, this doesn't require, in fact, can't be put on the ballot by a city council. This has to be put on the ballot by a circuit court judge. The way that happens is a petition is circulated. The law states all the different things that has to be on the petition to make it legal. That gets submitted to a circuit court judge. After the petition is ratified, they set a hearing, no less than 30 days, no more than 60 days out, so that it can have a public hearing. In that hearing, it's important to note the judge isn't deciding if this district should exist or not. That's for the people to decide. The judge is deciding if the rules were followed, and if the law was followed in order to get the petition filed. If the law was followed to the letter, he or she ratifies it, and it gets sent to St. Louis County to be placed on a ballot. During the election, 2 things take place. 1, citizens would vote on whether or not they want the district. And on the same ballot, they would also vote to elect their board members. The reason for that is you can't have a publicly funded entity exist and not have citizen oversight. So those 2 things happen on the same ballot. So what are some of the challenges? One would be timing. The rates are set in September and there's a January collection. So in order to get as close to that as possible, this would probably be something that would happen in August or maybe even April of next year or the following. One of the challenges, the boundaries currently do not touch. That's something that we can fix. It requires, we'll have to do some, we can be fixed legally, legislatively, or through arrangements with Florissant Valley, which are currently being between them. That's a problem that I don't have an answer for yet, but it's one I'm confident we can solve. And then there'll be a transition where we have to bridge the gap from creation to funding. For example, if we came into existence in August, there would have to be a contract in place prior that says if this passes the polls, both entities would continue at status quo for the budget that you guys ratified that previous July 1 until such time, say March 1st, when we would exist on our own because we received funding. Implementation during that time, that's when the chief officers would be able to basically create the district. They'd be working with their new board to figure out how they're going to be doing their run cards, who's going to do their dispatching, what medical control will be, who their vendors going to be. Staffing will remain in current cities, like I said, to allow a smooth changeover. No one loses rank or seniority. Again, like I said, the chiefs will divide those responsibilities. We'll try to keep all the resources home. For example, Hazelwood's just applied for a new ambulance. If they got that, that would stay there. We would be adding an ambulance either way to the city of Ferguson. Right now, your ambulance service is provided by Christian. This plan includes adding ambulance service for the citizens of Ferguson, increasing those services. Basically, in summary, costs keep going up. Revenues aren't keeping pace. It's not sustainable. There isn't an end game other than reducing services or finding a new way to fund those services. There's no such thing as a police district. There's no such thing as a parks department district, but if something called a fire district does exist. So it is a way to change the way we fund fire and keep those services, increase those services, while simultaneously providing the budget relief necessary to let the city increase all those other services they so desperately need to happen. And that's basically, like I said, that's a lot of information. There's no decision points that we just gave you. We're basically starting the conversation. This isn't something that happens, next month or anything like that. It's a long process. It's something that we feel is necessary if we're going to continue to provide public safety at a high level that the citizens have come to expect. Can I be happy to answer any questions? Let me stop.
I do have questions. This
Okay.
is Fran.
Hey, Fran.
Hello. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you for doing that. It went very quick. You spoke very fast. There's a lot of information.
Absolutely.
I was taking notes as we were going through it, and maybe we can, let me start off with a few questions, just starting off. First things first, because this is something that the community has heard during like you said, during city council meetings, the city manager saying that there was budgetary issues. I heard you mention that the two main reasons was because of the budget constraints and sustainability, meaning lack of retention. And so if those two are the reasons, I definitely want to look at the budget constraints. When we talk about budget constraints, I noticed in your graphs, even in the other, when you were comparing Hazelwood, I looked at 2021, and although it was hard to see the actual number of the drop that happened from 2021 to the year previous, I also know that we did receive a lot of funding to recuperate some of the things that we had to reduce, some of the departments that we had to reduce because of COVID and things of that nature. So in terms of budget constraints, when we talk about budget constraints, what specifically, and maybe Chief Hampton can speak to that, what specifically is causing the budget constraint that we're discussing?
Yeah, Fran, this is Chief Hampton. Budget constraints are, our sales taxes are not what they used to be. Our tax rate, our taxes, the money coming into the city of Ferguson is not what it used to be. Yes, we have gotten the CARES Act and we are getting a relief fund, but as we are doing the budget right now, you will see that we need those funds just to get by. We need the CARES Act just to get by. And when we do the budget, you'll understand a little bit more, but we're not completely done with that. And that will be up in another month, less.
Okay. Well, I definitely would. I'm looking forward to seeing that specifically so we can take a look at how much money, what's being suggested with this presentation, and where the need is within our budget to do so. And so maybe, I'm glad you've got, we got another month to kind of work on that, because I'll definitely be looking for that need based for this purpose. In terms of sustainability, you talked about lack of retention. And the retention, I'm wondering if, is that something that's just within our department? You also mentioned in Hazelwood that several of the firefighters had left and gone on to work for fire districts that could pay more. And so my question is, in terms of lack of retention, I know you mentioned Hazelwood, but specifically for the Ferguson Fire Department, within, let's just say, the last year to 5 years, how many people have we lost?
And I guess it's a great point. I thought I kind of addressed it, but I guess I didn't. We do not have a retention problem today. And the reason is because we are basic life support. We have excellent retention right now. And like I said, being BLS, what that means is most of us are emergency medical technicians, not paramedics. And so if somebody wanted to leave, they couldn't, because everyone else requires you to be a paramedic. Before, so 20 years ago, everyone required emergency medical technicians, and Ferguson had an extremely high turnover rate. The reason why I used Hazelwood and Berkeley as examples is they require paramedics now, which we have transitioned to, and they have longer than us, and we have similar pay scales, and they are already requiring paramedics, and they have retention issues, big ones. And so that's where we will be as more and more of our paramedics that we're hiring so that we can be ALS come into our fold, because right now emergency medical technicians can't go to other districts because they're not qualified.
Okay, so just to be clear, but in terms of the Ferguson Fire Department, there is not a lack of retention problem within our department?
No, ma'am.
Currently not. No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, so those two reasons that the city manager suggested initially, it's really down to one. It's a budgetary issue. I don't want to use a lack of retention for us as a reason, because it doesn't sound like there is a lack of retention from the last 5 years.
But I will say we just made the transition to start headed towards ALS. So I can tell you with confidence, retention is an issue that's on the very near horizon. The reason why it hasn't happened in the last 5 years is because we weren't transitioned to ALS for the last 5 years.
Okay, and is that something that that St. Louis County period is going to be experiencing?
Yes, ma'am.
We're one of the only departments that's left that's BLS.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like to me, it sounds like we're going to be just a shortage period, not if we merge or if we don't, but just simply because of what's happening with this particular transition that the fire departments are going through, correct?
I'm not, I apologize, but I don't understand the question.
What I'm saying is the retention that you're speaking of is going to be it's going to be St. Louis over the entire St. Louis County. So this is something, if everybody is going through this transition, then it's not something specifically based off of Ferguson. It's gonna be throughout multiple municipalities because everybody's going through this transition.
Right, municipal, well, I guess let me answer that. It's not countywide. It is the low end of the scale countywide. In other words, like I said, we're in the bottom 10% of paid in municipal fire departments. So like Florissant Valley or Blackjack or Community or Robinson or Northeast, they don't have retention problems because they have a much better benefits package. And so we can't solve all of that, because even if we consolidate, we're not going to be able to, without charging an exorbitant tax, have that same kind of benefit package that some of those other ones do. But we can offer while staying fiscally responsible, we can offer an enhanced benefits package over and above what we have now. That'll basically get us, more to the top of the bottom third, which allow us to recruit and retain better than we currently would be able to.
Okay. And then I just want to, and this is the part I wanted a little clarity on. When you got to talking about the 3 different options, you mentioned the standalone option, us becoming, just staying as we are. You mentioned the merging, and then you mentioned the creation of a new one and what that would look like. And So it seemed like the merging is it would be no representation on board. So with the version that you're recommending, will there be representation on board?
Yeah, so like I said, to create that, if, let's say this were to move forward and we go to the polls. So during that, on that same ballot, citizens, there would be people running for the board for that district from the communities within that district, whether it was a standalone or whether it was a merge. And so when that district created, the citizens also elect their board representatives from within the borders of that new district at the exact same time. So yes, there is citizen representation from day one in the creation model.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. And like I said, the presentation, actually, it was a lot of information. So if I'm going over things that,
For sure.
if I'm going over things that you've already answered, trust and believe I'm doing it because it was really fast. So I want to make sure that I'm correct as I'm getting an understanding of this process. And I appreciate you for being patient enough to answer these questions.
Absolutely.
Ranking, let me see. So I did want to go back down to, I definitely have some questions in regards to the property taxes and the reductions. I would like to go over that, and I'm not going to spend time doing that now. I would definitely want to go, Chief Hampton, if we can go over that specifically together. I want to have a clearer understanding of what that looks like, because I heard at some point we were talking about an increase, and then at some point we were talking about a reduction. So I just want to be clear on that as we decide what's going on. And then also in terms of Kinlock, I noticed with the last option, you kind of did a comparison of what the cost benefits would be to merge. And I'm just wondering, if one, the first question is because we talked about Kinlock and the fact that they wanted an extra building and it wouldn't be financially feasible for us to do at this point in time. But if we were to merge with, let's just say, Hazelwood, and you are still open to looking at that, would that be a comparison? Should we be doing, would you suggest that we do a cost comparison for including that as a second stage? Because I'm looking at neighboring communities, and I'm also looking at the fact you mentioned that we weren't connected and that there would be some processes that we would have to go through if we were to go with the recommended version.
To answer that, absolutely. In a second stage, for sure. If not in the first stage, the first model I showed you is our preferred model. The only reason that wasn't the one I proposed is because two of the agencies, just told me that they didn't want to move forward with it, and so I have to respect that. But to answer your question, absolutely, we would be interested in including those agencies in a second stage, and quite frankly, we'd be interested in including those agencies in a first stage if we can make it work. Because it's the better model.
Okay. And then also that brought me to ask a question. Is it, if you add another municipality in, standalone municipality in, would that be more feasible to us? Like, I know the whole goal originally was let's look at what merging would be. If we work with 3, did you find out, like, did we save money working with more versus less?
Yes, and the model that had Berkeley included, we could charge a lower tax rate.
Okay. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you.
And absolutely, and like I said, Councilwoman, and all the councilwomen, tons of information. This is a big thing. I don't expect everyone to have a full grasp of it tonight. We are open and accessible. I'd be happy to have additional meetings or meet with anyone and answer more questions. Like I said, there was no way that tonight was going to answer everything, but it started a conversation at least,
Chief, this is Tony Burrow. I just have one thing. If you were to tie this all together and unwrap it, just really unpack it in 2 sentences, what is the outcome of what we've discussed tonight, the comments, your presentation? By the way, I want to say your presentation has rivaled any Fortune 500 that I've seen. So kudos to you for that. And the information, those of us that are in the industry that are looking at these type of things on a regular basis, I'm gonna tell you, I sat on the edge of my seat just because of what you had and the dollars and I am a show me the money kind of girl. And when you showed the money and I had my calculator out to the penny, I appreciate that. I appreciate you respecting us enough to come with all that you had. You came with gusto, and I appreciate that. We don't get that all the time. The 3 years that I've been doing budgeting, I have had some lackluster information, and I could take what you did tonight and take it right there and say, this is what we do. I appreciate you. You know, I'm thinking about Ray Charles when he used to say, I'll make it do what it do. You've made it do what it do tonight, and I appreciate that. So if you would unwrap this and 2 sentences and say, what is the responsibility of this council from what we have received from you tonight? I think that would wrap it up for all the comments and the questions. And so what do we walk away with you wanting us to do?
What I want you to do right now, I guess would be twofold. One, understand that the choice isn't so much, do you want a fire district or not? The choice is, do you think you can find other ways to continue to afford your services, or do you want to reduce services? And the fact of the matter is, it's like, I know Councilwoman Fran said, you know, you found some funding, there was CARES Act, there's things like that. If you're relying on aid packages to meet our budget, that doesn't make it sustainable, right? And so I guess that's more than 2 sentences. Essentially,
No,
essentially,
you're doing
you
it
guys
just
are
like
doing-
just like I understand it. So no, take as many sentences as you like, because this is the unwrapping.
is basically what we're asking for. This isn't something that's going to be a no-brainer, right? It's a big ask, but people need to understand that what we're asking for is, there's no other way that we see to provide budget relief. The city needs to provide all these other services that desperately needs to happen, like, and continue to provide a high level of public safety. The police need funding. Everyone needs funding. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we're not requiring you guys to say, yes, this is going to exist or not. Well, basically what we're asking you is to let the people decide if they want this or not. That's what needs to happen. The people will tell us if they're willing to vote to do this, or if they're comfortable reducing services, and their will be done either way. I guess that would be the takeaway.
So the other thing I would like to point out is, you know, I'm getting text messages and so forth as this presentation is going on, and the time frame. You know, this was brought up because we needed to get past the election, and this was a special meeting that was brought up because this is something that you as a fire department wanted to get out in front of the citizens as soon as possible, so that the discussion could start immediately and questions could be answered immediately. And I know there's talk of, you know, even having an opportunity for maybe a town hall down the road, or something that allows people to ask questions that they have for you directly, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that being said, you know, that gives, if we're looking at this going on a ballot in April or August, we're looking at a very open conversation for 12 months to 16 months or 18 months. I'm not doing my math, whatever, but over 12 months or more. So that gives you, all the citizens, plenty of time to kind of understand where this is going. And then another thing I would say is, this isn't an us situation in terms of city council. Honestly, you don't need our blessing. You need us to allow the citizens to do this. This is a decision that's going to create a separate entity. So again, this is not the city council pushing this, or the mayor pushing this, or anything else. This is strictly between the citizens and the fire department, and you're here to answer their questions, and the citizens will make this decision. So, you know, that being said, I mean, I would also remind everybody that, yes, we have not done our budget yet, but we can already tell you that our revenues have gone down tremendously with COVID, and they were going down before COVID. COVID just made it even worse. Our expenses, even maintaining at a stable rate, there's always that percentage of increase in gas and salaries and so forth. So our expenses are continuing to increase. And as you said earlier, there's benefits in the sense that, like even with the Prop P tax, what part of the Prop P that is funding the fire department would actually go back into public safety once a fire district was created, and would go basically stay in the city's budget going into public safety. So the concern I have, and I want people to understand, is that we're going to do the budget. And by the way, budget is open to everybody. And I would strongly encourage to have a full house to sit there and listen to budget, because it will answer all the questions people have. But we can keep doing what we're doing, but we're going to run out of money. I mean, there's just the way it is. And if we are finding an opportunity to create something that benefits both parties to be able to give continued services to the citizens, this is an option. So I would just say, everybody take a breath, lean into it, learn more about it. Where you find pushback and you're finding anxiety or anger in your own self, write it down as a question and let's talk about it. Bring it to these things and get answers before you get upset. Get answers.
Heather, you had a question or comment?
I do. So I really appreciate the presentation tonight. I know that we've heard this in different variations at a town hall earlier or last year. What jumps out at me is when we go into budget, 75% to 80% of our general fund is strictly personnel. Like that's what the majority of what we pay for from our general fund goes to. And then you add on the complexity of the equipment that needs to be brought up, to date. And there's a lot. And we have, thankfully, you guys have gotten a lot of good grants, but it is not going to be sustainable year after year after year. And so to come in saying that you're repealed the fire sales tax and you're going to have a 50-cent rollback on other taxes, to get it down to a minimal amount to the population, I don't want Ferguson to not exist as Ferguson anymore. So I really hope that we can talk to people and actually get in front of this and make this a viable option. Like I'm a problem solver, right? Like that's what I do. And this looks like you have put in the work to address not just what you need from a fire protection entity, but you've also looked at it from how it affects the community and how it affects the taxpayers. And so I look forward to continued conversation, and I really appreciate the presentation.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to make one statement about what Councilwoman Lipka said, because I beg to differ. We were all put on this council because we had constituents that are depending on us to make things plain. And I do think it is part of our responsibility to what Councilwoman Robinette said, is to get the word out. We are charged with that. Remember, we raised our hand, made that vow. We are all charged with taking back to the citizens what we think is the right thing for us to do. So it is our responsibility. Thank you, Chief, for unpacking that for us. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that we have a responsibility for that. And so I want to make that clear. Yes, it is part of the council's responsibility, not to tell a citizen what to do, not to tell a citizen what to do. But I think we need to at least keep everybody informed. Everybody's not listening to this call. And they may not ever hear what's going on. And I'm sure, Mary, you can attest to that because I know you deal real close with the citizens. Some of our people don't get the information. I don't care if it's the Times or if it's the Channel 4 News. How many times have we heard, and come on, Mary, help me with this. How many times have we heard, I didn't know nothing about that. And they were telling the truth. I mean, come on, y'all. And so it is our responsibility, the 7 of us, to come together and say, this is what we need. Because I remember one time Fran was saying about when we needed some social workers. That's what some of our situations are different. And I don't want to get into all of what we're dealing with right now with the verdict and all that. But some things calls for different measures. And so I believe that we are responsible for our citizens knowing what is the right thing for all of us. And if we don't get together on it, then some of our citizens will never know. Mary, do you think I'm telling you right about that?
Yeah, you are telling it right. It becomes all of us,
yes,
understanding this presentation and probably sitting through the presentation again.
Yes.
So we can walk through the numbers. I think it's very important that we get this presentation again and we walk through the numbers, show us how you arrived at those numbers, how you come up with the $1.85. Because when you are out and about, people are going to ask you, and you have to be able to explain to that person how that $1.85 was arrived at. So walking through the presentation again, just a little bit slower at another time. And then, you know, council
because a
getting,
dime don't sound like a lot of money, Mary, but when you add it up to the point of where we get into all of these millions of dollars, 10 cents added on to 65, that makes a difference. So I think you're absolutely right. When we hear it during budget time, I think would probably be a good time to hear it during the budget time where it fits in with that particular piece. I think we're all going to understand it better. I'm just good at hearing numbers and getting it, but a lot of people that I serve, they looking for me to know that. They're looking for Councilwoman Noor to know that, Councilwoman Nelson, and all of us to know what everything is talking about. I'm gonna get off the bandwagon, but I think it's our responsibility.
Councilwoman Noor, do you have anything that's, I see your head going. So
No, I just want to say I agree, and I would like to hear the presentation in person, you know, to be right there and to view everything, because I agree. I definitely agree, you know, with the conversation. And will we receive a copy of the presentation, you know, after, you know, in case someone says, well, Councilwoman Noor, can you send me the presentation? I can have that on hand.
Sure, absolutely.
okay.
Okay.
Councilwoman Nelson.
I mean, I just assumed we would get a copy of it so we can all have a better understanding, especially myself, so.
But I would like for Fireman Jeremy to really, we have another opportunity to see this and walk us through it step by step by step. I think that will work. I think that will work. Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. And I'd be happy to meet with anybody in addition to that, if they have it on to come up to the firehouse, or I can meet you somewhere. I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Okay.
I have my hand up, Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman Lipka.
So I just want to be clear. I am not by any sense shirking my responsibility to answer questions to the citizens. And so if I came across that way, my apologies. What I'm saying, though, is this is not a decision by council. This is a decision by citizens. So when people say, well, council's doing this or council's doing that, no, this is This is a political entity fire protection district that is being created by the firemen and women who are wanting to create this. As council members, we do not have power over the decision of them doing this or not doing this. What they have the rights by law to do this if they so choose. What we as a council have to understand is the realities of the reasons, the numbers, and to be able to answer those questions. And that part, I am not shirking that responsibility at all. What I'm trying to make clear is that the decision of this fire district lays in the hands of the citizens. And the decision to create this fire district lays in the hands of the fire department's men and women who have chosen to look at this possibility. And the benefits will benefit not only themselves, it will benefit services, it will benefit rehiring, it will benefit retention, it will benefit both communities, and it will benefit our budget. So that's what I'm trying to get across. So if I hope I got it across properly this time. I see you shaking your head, so that makes me feel like maybe I have. But I do not want anybody to think, especially my fellow council women, to think that I'm shirking any responsibilities as a council member to be able to answer questions for the citizens.
Linda, so you will know that didn't even come across to me at all. All I'm saying is we don't, but this is not something we need to shovel out. I mean, use a rake and shovel, rake what you need in, shovel out what you don't. It was just that when I want the citizens to understand that we're doing our due diligence. That's why I asked for Chief to unpack it, because I think he got what I was asking for. So we're good.
Okay, thank you. Octavia, anyone else, any other council member have their hands up?
Not that I
Okay.
see, no.
Okay, I just would like to share with you that we are not having a closed session tonight. Apollo is unavailable, and he asked that we schedule a closed session for Tuesday night.
Mayor, do we have a council meeting on the 27th?
Yeah.
I thought we only had one this month. I didn't realize we were going
No, we
back to
have
back.
two. In April is usually the 3rd and the 4th, because we have to wait until the election is certified. And so that's why we move it to the 3rd Tuesday and our regular 4th Tuesday meeting.
All right, my confusion on that. I will get with you tomorrow regarding the next Tuesday.
Okay.
So way to keep it your hard stop at 8:30.
Yeah, I know.
Right. That's what I was
Eight-
thinking.
8:28, 8:28, girl.
We just want to say, Jeremy, we thank you for the presentation. We're
Very much.
looking for another presentation in the future for the council to walk through it a little bit slower and, calculate the numbers. Thank you, Chief Hampton. And I just would like to say thank you to all the council members. We're working together, and look at your selections again. And then Tuesday, we'll know what we're going to finalize, okay? With that in mind, I would like a motion in a second to adjourn.
So
moved.
moved.
Before we do that, Mayor, the last thing, on the selections that we have selected, those are a go. Are you saying for some additional? Is that what you mean on that?
No, just look at them and make certain, for certain that's what you want. That's
Okay.
what I'm talking about.
Well, I can tell you now, Mayor, I'm clear on mine. So
Yeah, I'm done. I'm clear. And
Okay.
it's the possibility that I may not be available on Friday. I have to go out of town. So if that's the case, I'm done with mine, just like we said it.
Okay.
Mayor Jones, I just wanted to confirm, you said tomorrow, the closed session with Apollo,
No, the closed session
Tuesday.
has been scheduled for Tuesday, April the 27th, after the regular council meeting.
Okay.
Tomorrow, Mayor, tomorrow is Councilwoman Robinette's birthday.
no, Saturday.
Not
Saturday is.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Happy birthday to
birthday.
you.
50.
Oh, somebody can sing.
I'm not ready, like top 50, like I'm not ready. So I will not go quietly into that.
Okay.
I will.
Happy birthday if we don't get to you on Saturday. Okay. So now can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Moved.
It has
Second.
been moved by Councilwoman Borough and second by Councilwoman Robinette to adjourn the meeting. Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned until Tuesday. Everyone have a great weekend and don't celebrate too much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.